Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 73 of your student journal. And before we get started, we're going to work on our problem of the day. Today we're just going to remind ourselves about some strategy that will help us be successful in comparing decimals. So my first decimal is 6 20/100ths. And I'm going to compare that to 6 2/10. Okay, although it's sometimes we just want to look at them quickly with our eyes, especially if it was a test, that's not the best way to do that because sometimes our eyes will trick us. So the way to be successful and not make a mistake is to line up our numbers with our decimals lined up. Another strategy that I like to do is if there's any place values that aren't equal, I like to add a 0. So I'd add a 0 right here. And then I start from my left and go to my right comparing. So 6 and 6 don't help me, 2 and 2 don't help me, 0 and 0 don't help me. So we could say those two numbers are equal in value. Okay, let's try another one. And please make sure you're doing this with me because I'm writing in green. Now again, I know we want to just jump in and answer it because that's what seems easiest. But if this was a test, a good strategy is just to take the time to do it and line up our numbers with the decimal lined up. So once I line them up, look what I clearly see. Okay, I can even add a 0 here for this box. So I have on my left, that's where I want to start. So 4 and 0, it's clear that this one is larger. Now you might have already seen that and you might think it's silly to spend time doing this, but I promise this way you'll make sure that you never just are going too fast and your eyes trick you. Okay, this is the one I'd like you to try on your own and your teacher will be asking you for the answer. And I'm sorry if you are running out of space like I am. There was not a lot of space in this one. Okay, so take a second and copy that problem down and do it, and then we will get started for the day. Okay. We are moving on to a new unit today. So our first unit we did together was adding fractions. We are now moving on to subtracting fractions, but we're going to be using a lot of the same strategies as that we did before. So our objective or our goal for the day is, today I will subtract fractions using an area model, period. Okay, so they have a lot of vocabulary for us to look at today. We're not going to spend too much time looking at it because most of this we've already talked about. We know what a numerator and denominator are. The denominator tells us how many parts the whole was cut into, and the numerator tells us how many parts we have. We've talked about common denominators, that we need common denominators when we add. We're also going to need to have common denominators when we subtract. We've been using the words vertical and horizontal before, and they just give us a visual there. Simplest form, when we did simplest form, remember we made a factor table and we found our GCF because that makes it easier to do and find the GCF. And then we've talked about a little bit about our answers being reasonable. And we're not really working on benchmark fractions. And then these are just the actual words for a subtraction problem. Okay, but I'm going to jump right into the steps. When we did this with addition, we kind of changed the steps and we're just going to go through and shorten them again. So step 1 says draw and shade an area model for the first fraction. Divide the whole into vertical parts. Draw and shade an area model for the second fraction. Divide the whole into horizontal parts. we're going to kind of combine those two steps. When we did this for addition, they were one big step. And what we need to know is we're going to draw and shade. One has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. That's all we need to remember for that is draw and shade. One has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. They say this one has to be vertical and this one has to be horizontal. It really wouldn't matter. They just have to have one of each like we did when we added. Okay, our next step says divide the first fraction horizontally by the same number of sections as the second fraction. And then the next step says divide the second fraction vertically by the same number of sections as the first fraction. Okay, remember when we did this in addition, we said we're just going to call that make them match. They have to match. So we're not going to worry about all those words. We're just going to make our pictures match. Okay, and then we're going to subtract and then we're going to simplify if needed. Okay, I will say that sometimes the subtraction seems a little trickier than addition, so you are going to see me be a little bit more careful than when I did the addition. Okay, so today not only do I have my red pen, but I also grabbed a red crayon because I'm going to be shading, because step one said draw and shade, so you might want to have a highlighter if possible when it's your turn. Okay, my first problem says 3/5 take away or subtract 1/2. Okay, so my first steps say that I need to draw and shade, and then one has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. Okay, so 3/5. So the 5 means I cut it into 5 parts, and the 3 means I have 3 of the parts. Okay, now I didn't do this with the addition, but I'm going to do this with the subtraction. I'm going to write this out. So this is what I have. I just want to explain this. This is what I have, okay, and this one was vertical, so I'm going to divide this one horizontal. So the 2 means cut it into 2 parts, and the 1 means I have 1 part. And that's what they want me to take away. I'm just going to write these words to help be a little more clear. Okay, so now that was step 1. So draw and shade, 1 vertical and 1 horizontal. Now we're at our next step, which just is make them match. Okay, so this one doesn't have any horizontal lines. So here there's 1 horizontal line, so here there's 1 horizontal line. This one doesn't have any vertical lines, so I had how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to add 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the reason I wrote these is to be really clear for my next step. So now I'm at the subtract step. I need to subtract now. So I have 6, but they want me to take away how many? They want me to take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I could have just counted with dots. They want me to take 5 away. So how many do I actually have left? I only have 1 left out of how many? How many was it cut into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I only have 1 piece after I take away how many they told me to take away out of 10. Now my final step says to simplify if needed. Oops, sorry. I know I can't simplify because when you have a 1 in your fraction, you can't simplify. The 1's never going to be able to get smaller. So I am done with my first problem. Okay, let's look at my next problem. Kobe the cat ate 1 5/6 pounds of cat food last week. This week he ate 3/4 pounds of cat food. How much more cat food did he eat last week? Okay, so it looks like a subtraction problem because how much more? So I know that that's why it's a subtraction problem. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. My first step says I'm going to draw and shade 1 vertical and 1 horizontal. So what do I have? I have 1 5/6. So I have 1 whole, and then I have 5/6. So the 6 means cut it into 6 parts. And the 5 means I have 5 of them. So I have 1 whole. Sorry, I'm trying to color a little bit nicely. Okay, so that's what I have. I might even write that. And they want me to take away 3/4. Okay, so since I divided this one vertically, I need to divide this one horizontally because one has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. So the 4 says there's 4 parts and the 3 tells me I have 3 of them. Okay. All right, so this is what I have, and this is what they want me to take away. Okay, so let's look at our next step. It says I'm going to make them match. So this one is missing its horizontal lines. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3. So let's add 1, 2, 3. And this is missing its vertical lines, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertical lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have this. I want to take this away. How many do they want me to take away? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They want me to take away 18 pieces. So let's come over here and take them away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, so what do I have left now? Because I just subtracted, so I have 1 whole left. I didn't have to use that. And I only have these little 2 pieces here. I have this piece and this piece left. So I have 2 pieces out of how many? How many was this whole thing cut into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 4. So it was cut into 24 pieces. Okay, my final step says to simplify. So when I simplify, normally I've been making a factor table for 2. So we could come over here and say 1 times 2, 2 times, and there's a repeat. So my only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So I want to start with the largest. Is 2 a factor of 24? Yes. So let's divide both by 2, and I get 1 and 1/12. And that is my final answer. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's try some together. So again, hopefully you have a pencil and something to shade with. We are on page 74. And here is our first problem together. 3/4 take away 2/3. Okay, so remember our first step says we're going to draw and shade. One has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. So 3/4, the 4 means we cut it into 4 pieces, and the 3 means we have 3 of them. And this is what we have. That's what we are starting with. And they want us to take away 2/3. So since we divided this vertical, we need to divide this horizontal. So we have 3, it was cut into 3 pieces, but we only have 2 of them. So let's color that. And this is what we're going to take away. Okay, so that's our first step, draw and shade, 1 vertical, 1 horizontal. Now our next step says make them match. So this side is missing its 1, 2 horizontal lines, and this is missing its 1, 2, 3 vertical lines. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now our next step is to actually subtract. How many do they want us to take away? They want us to take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's come over to what we have and take away 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so what are we left with? We're only left with this one piece out of how many? How many was the hole cut into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our answer is 1/12. Now again, we know we can't simplify that because there's a 1 in it and you're not going to be able to make the 1 smaller. So it's already in simplest form. Okay, let's look at our next one together, our word problem. Thomas walks 1 3/4 miles from his home to school. Jackson walks 1 2/5 miles from his home to school. How much farther does Thomas walk to school than Jackson? Okay, the how much farther tells us it's a subtraction problem. So we're going to do the same thing. Our first step is we're going to draw and shade 1 horizontal and 1 vertical. So 1 3/4. I have 1 hole and then I have 3/4. So let's cut it into 4 pieces and I only have 3 of them. And I have this hole also. So this is what I have. And we're going to take away Jackson. Jackson is 1 hole and 2/5. And if this was vertical, this needs to be horizontal, so we need to cut it into 5 pieces. And there's 2 of them. We have 2. And we also have the hole. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2 is we need to make them match now. So this one is missing its 1, 2, 3, 4 horizontal lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is missing its 1, 2, 3 vertical lines. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is what I have, and they want me to take this stuff away. So how many pieces do they want us to take away? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's come over here and take away 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then they want me also to take away 1 hole. So come over here and take away 1 hole. So what are we left with? We have no holes left, and we're left with how many pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out of how many is there total? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so now our final step is let's see if we can simplify that. So let's make a factor table for 7. 1 times 7, 2 times nothing, 3 times nothing, 4 times nothing, 5 times nothing, 6 times nothing, and 7 repeats. So it's only 1 and 7. That's because 7 is a prime number, and 7 does not fit into 20. It's not a factor of 20, and 1 won't help. So we know we're in simplest form. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today you are going to be doing page 75, 76, as well as 77. Have a nice afternoon.